If you've ever tried to lose weight, I'm 100% sure that you've heard about the notion CICO, or calories in and calories out. The idea that if you burn more calories than you consume, you'll simply lose fat. Simple, right? Wasn't for me. Never was. And I'm sure some of you out there can actually relate to this. Let me tell you why CICO, calories in and calories out, never ever worked for me. And now, instead of focusing on calories, I focus on micronutrients and real raw nutrition. When I first started my fat loss journey, I was all in on CICO. I tracked every single calorie, every meal. I spent hours in the gym, running on a treadmill, trying to burn off more than I was eating. But here's the thing, it wasn't even sustainable. I'd lose some weight, but the results never lasted. And after a while, I'd feel like I was spinning my wheels. So, why didn't CICO work for me? First of all, I think that calories in and calories out have blown up because of the fitness industry. But the thing is, it leaves out so much information, and it also kind of portrays the human body as a vehicle that simply runs on fuel. But it doesn't take into account that our body is a biological wonder. We have several hormones, several organs doing things for us every single time we consume something. For example, if you consume food, you're basically telling your body, or sending them signals or information, telling them what to do. For example, when you consume fructose, your liver will store more fat. But if you consume fat or protein, you're not going to signal your liver to store more fat. And this goes on and on. Every single nutrient, every single vitamin, every single different type of food that you consume gives you just that. Your body is not a simple math problem, and that's why I don't like CICO. I've never liked it, to be quite honest. It really just overlooks how the body works in terms of hormones, fat loss and fat storage. Your body is very smart. Remember, we have been through evolution and we have been through periods of starvation and famine, so our bodies basically had to adapt. Now, if you simply cut down on your calories, meaning you make food scarce, your body will adapt to this. So what it will do is it would actually slow down your metabolism and increase a hormone which is called ghrelin. This is what's called a hunger hormone. Now this will basically tell your body that you are more hungry than you are because, as I said, you just made food scarce. Your body is kind of in this like starvation mode. It's saying to you, hey, we need these nutrients to perform these tasks. What's going on? Could you maybe provide me with some food? And this is problematic in so many ways. I was constantly battling hunger. I'd eat less, but then I'd crave all sorts of junk food. And guess what? I'd binge, fall off track, and then I'd feel guilty. This story repeated itself several times, and this wasn't a healthy relationship with food, and the cycle never stopped. And this is why I think that calories in and calories out is actually a very toxic mindset. But everything changed when I learned about ketosis, and more specifically carnivore. These two diets do something amazing. Apart from literally healing your body, we've heard several thousands of testimonials and anecdotes of people healing their autoimmune conditions. It also does wonders to your body composition. They basically shift your body from burning sugar into burning fat. And what's the best part about this? Well, when you're in ketosis, which by the way can take some time if you just transitioned to keto or carnivore, but after you've become keto adapted or fat adapted as it's called, your body will now burn fat for energy, which means your hunger will be suppressed. You will feel satiated for longer. I can now go periods of like 24 hours without eating any type of food because first and foremost, I only eat food which is easily digestible by my body, and second of all, I also eat foods that I know will satiate me for longer because I'm providing my body the correct nutrients. If you consume foods which are low in nutrients and maybe you consume a lot of like 0-calorie sodas or candies or snack bars, you're not giving your body the nutrients that it needs. You're actually, playing a trick on your body. And as I said, your body is smart. It knows what it's doing. So what did this lead to? Well, basically, as soon as I entered a state of ketosis, all my cravings went away. I never have cravings nowadays. I don't crave pizzas. I don't crave any type of junk food, sodas, or anything in particular that would make damage to my body, quite honestly. As soon as I switched to the carnivore diet, I felt so much better instantly. Not only was my inflammation decreased and my autoimmune conditions went into remission, but I just wasn't obsessed with counting calories anymore. I could eat until I was full. Steak, eggs, even tallow, sometimes raw dairy. And I kept losing fat without the constant hunger. And the best part, I never had to worry about my metabolism slowing down because these diets actually support healthy hormone levels that actually help you burn fat more efficiently. And here is why I personally think that keto or carnivore is way more sustainable than counting calories. Even if some people might say that carnivore is an extreme diet, here is why I think it's sustainable. They help you get back in tune with your body's natural processes. So that's number one. Number two, when people say, that carnivore is way too extreme, I think they're missing a key point here. The human body thrives off of nutrients and not calories. What type of food out there has every single nutrient that our body needs? It's red meat. When you focus on whole foods, like nutrient-dense foods, even if you want to consume some vegetables, like I personally wouldn't do that, but if you want to do that, that's totally fine. You will basically give your body the nutrition that it needs. Fatty cuts of meat, eggs, maybe you use some like coconut oil or avocado oil, or maybe use olive oil. I don't know, like you can pick and choose for yourself. My point is that when you go into a state of ketosis, you will feel so much better. Your inflammation will lower, your body will start to burn fat, you will be slim. You'll never have to worry about like overeating because these foods are so satiating. You will never see anybody overeat on keto or carnivore unless they're doing like these kind of snack foods that are coming into the market. But if you just keep it simple, steak and eggs, you cannot overeat. I've never heard anybody consume more than like 2 pounds of meat a day on the carnivore diet because it's so hard. It's very filling. Imagine consuming a 1 pound like ribeye with lots of fat on it. You're gonna be like satiated for hours to come. I'd say minimum of like 10 to 12 hours, depending on like, how inflamed you are or how damaged you are. Because remember, the food that you take in, your body will utilize it and also use those nutrients to heal your body. So if you come from a background of like chronic disease, autoimmune conditions, and you're very sick or have been very sick, maybe you need more nutrients in the beginning. If you start the keto approach or the carnivore diet approach, I can assure you there's never going to be any more like crash diets where you do some intense cardio, you deprive yourself of calories, and then after a couple of weeks you just binge eat and you gain all the weight or fat back again. I can assure you that won't happen on these specific type of diets. Now let's also talk about mental clarity and energy boost, because in the fitness industry, most people consume energy drinks, pre-workouts, and caffeine just to stimulate their mind. I think they primarily do it because they don't feel that sharp and they don't feel that they have the energy required. Well, once I got past that sugar addiction, I felt more focused and energetic. I stopped dealing with brain fog or energy crashes, and it wasn't just about fat loss, it was actually about feeling better overall. My skin, my digestion, and mood all improved too. I mentioned earlier that the ultimate goal, like why I started carnivore in the beginning, was simply to actually cure all of my diseases and all of my chronic issues that I had. So how do you get started? Because most people out there might be nervous. Most people out there are clueless. Should I just, cut off all the carbs today, cold turkey? Should I slowly transition? Should I, do weeks where I do off carbs and then add some carbs back in? What about fruit? Like that Dr. Paul Saladino, he eats fruit and honey. It should be good, right? First and foremost, don't overwhelm yourself. Don't get way ahead of things. We have to take things step by step. You don't need to count calories and stress about every other thing. The first step is to cut off like processed food. I would say if you're a person who eats like junk food, if you eat out a lot, if you buy a lot of snacks, that's step number one. If you haven't even done that, you cannot like start the initial process or the initial step. So I would say that the intro stage is to try to cut off all those things and take your time. Don't stress, because maybe that will lead to you like eventually binge eating. But number one, cut off all processed foods. I'm talking about sodas, junk food, yes, like pizza, hamburgers, Chinese takeaway, like whatever, snacks, candy, chips, donut, cut them out. Slowly but surely. And then we want to get rid of the bread, the pasta, the rice, the potatoes, like the more natural, so to speak, carbohydrates. And this is just because, as I said, we want to slowly transition into becoming more of a ketogenic state. And by simply reducing the carbs that come from like pasta, rice, bread, and potatoes, which most people consume every day, is going to be way easier for you. Now, how do you slowly transition? Well, as I said, imagine we have two bars here. This is your carb intake, and this is your protein and fat intake. Every time you decrease your carbs, your fat and proteins have to get up. So for example, let's say week number 1, you consume potatoes, and maybe you eat some ground beef with some eggs, all right? Now, week number 2, you're going to slowly but surely, as I said, start to decrease your carb intake. And do you see what happens to my right hand here? It increases. That's because you need to increase the fat and protein intake so it can compensate for the carbohydrate loss. Why you want to do this is primarily because your body thrives off of glucose. It needs glucose. It doesn't need carbohydrates. So if anybody tells you that carbs are essential, they are lying to you, because you don't need carbs to thrive. You don't even need carbs to survive. Your body needs glucose. A misconception is that carbs is glucose. It's not. Glucose is something that your body creates. Yes, it can create it from carbs, but it can also create it from fats or proteins through a process which is called gluconeogenesis, which basically just means it transitions or like converts protein and fats into glucose. Some healthy fats that I would recommend, depending on which route you would take. I'm gonna mention both ketogenic approaches and also carnivorous approaches. So for the carnivores, butter is amazing. Cream, you got raw dairy like raw cheese, also like raw milk. Raw milk has some lactose in it, so just be cautious. It might lead to some weight gain because, as I said, carbohydrates will actually tell your liver to store fat. Number 2 would be more of the ketogenic approach. I'd say like olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil. All those 3 are amazing. I wouldn't necessarily cook in them, if I'm gonna be completely honest. If I were to cook, I would use ghee, butter, or tallow, or lard if you want to use that. I'd say that tallow and lard is like probably your best bet. They have a high smoke point and they just taste good overall. Take things step by step. You know, you have to do intuitive eating. It's gonna sound weird in the beginning. It's gonna be like kind of hard in the beginning, but what you want to do is basically eat food, preferably steak or some type of red meat, until it doesn't taste good. And now you're probably wondering, like, what is this guy talking about? Well, that's the easiest form of learning to eat intuitively. You basically eat until the meat does not taste good anymore. After it doesn't taste good anymore, that's your body signal telling you, hey, we're not having this, like, you know, switch this up. And in the beginning, you might have like immense cravings. Even if you watch this video and I just talked about how your cravings will decrease and maybe even be eventually fully gone, it's gonna take some time to get to that point. I've been doing this for 3 years, so it took me like, I don't know, a couple of months until I actually can say that all my cravings just decreased. I'm not saying that keto or like carnivore is the only way to, you know, lose fat. Obviously, I've seen people do calories in and calories out and lose fat, but what I've also come to realize is that they lose weight, and losing weight could also mean losing muscle, losing bone density, losing bone mass. Like, they don't take into account that just by losing weight, it doesn't mean that you're actually being successful in your fat loss journey. But I'm just speaking for experience. Like, this has been the best thing I've ever done, to be quite honest. It has changed my life, not just because I got my dream body and, like, you know, I can literally walk around looking like this without the effort. I just eat the things I love to eat. I don't have to think about calories. I don't have to, you know, stress about not eating. I'm just walking around feeling happy all the time, feeling energized, and I'm not doing some type of crash diets. As I mentioned before, people who usually are in the gym industry, they drink copious amounts of caffeine just to be able to get through the day because they're not feeding their body the correct nutrition that it needs. So if you've been struggling to lose fat, or maybe you just want to, you know, lose a couple of pounds, maybe it's not about being like stage ready or anything like that, I urge you to just like give the keto or the carnivore approach one try, because I can assure you, once you start and once you see the results and once you get all the other benefits that I talked about, mental clarity, no more brain fog, feeling overall happy, you're gonna thank me and you're gonna thank the whole carnivore community, to be quite honest. So thank you so much for watching. If you want more tips on health, lifestyle, and whatnot, like everything in between, please consider dropping a like, subscribe to the channel, it really helps the channel grow. Down in the description, I will also give you guys a link to my TikTok and Instagram, because I'm more active there, of course. I try to post 2 times a day on those platforms. And if you want some help, or, you know, you want to reach out to me and message me, it's easiest on one of those 2 platforms. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Take care.